Question number 3 this week comes from Vicki Keller. And this is an interesting one. This is a very, very interesting question. Vicky says, "Hello, Star Wars Canon podcast. My family and I have been listening since before The Last Jedi came out. Love how far you've come." Thank you so much, Vicky. I do appreciate it. Do you think we'll ever get an all-female Star Wars movie? And if so, how do you think it will be received? Personally, I think it would be great, and that it definitely needs to happen. Thank you for taking my question, and may the Force be with you. Thanks for the question, Vicky, and it's a legitimate question. In the day and age we live in, this is a legitimate question. I'm honestly shocked, to be completely honest. I'm honestly shocked at this point that they have not announced an all-female cast Star Wars movie yet. And odds are it's going to happen at some point. Odds are 5-10 years from now we're going to have a Star Wars movie that is all-female led. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem. Now, it depends on how it's done. A great example, and you guys probably already know where I'm going with this. A great example, Ghostbusters 2016. You know, Chris Stolley and I just ranted about this on Realm of the Mist podcast the other day, and this is a great example. You've got these classic Ghostbusters movies that are absolutely phenomenal. Second one is like, it's not as good as the first, but they're great. And then you reboot it with an all-female cast. Now, with Ghostbusters, the problem wasn't an all-female cast. It was just the movie sucked. It had nothing to do with all the women in it. You know, if you guys listen to that podcast, Melissa McCarthy to Chris Stolley is just not funny. You know, and you know, having a female Slimer, like, really? Are you serious? And whether you want to admit it or not, that Ghostbusters movie was extremely feminist-led. They just tried every way they could to show that this is a female's Ghostbuster. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but when you're shoving it down everybody's throats and forcing them to take it, that's when you start pissing people off. All right? Now, they when they did Ghostbusters, they made a Ghostbusters movie centered around all females. If you do a Star Wars movie with an all-female cast, don't build the story around the women. Build the story and then put the women into the situation. Don't do it the other way around. An all-female led Star Wars movie, it's going to happen at some point. We're going to get one eventually. It's you know, and how is it going to be received? Jesus Christ! Look at the day and age we live in now. Look at how Ghostbusters was received. You know, look at people who complain about Rey being a female. You know, being the female lead. Like the first 3 Star Wars movies that the new Lucasfilm under Disney made were all female led. Rey, Jyn, Rey. And people had problems with that. I didn't, but people had problems with that. And at some point it's going to happen, and people are just going to have to swallow that pill. They're just going to have to. And do I think it needs to happen? I don't. And call me a sexist. I don't care. I don't know if it's actually necessary, unless you come up with a Star Wars planet that it's nothing but women. Or do a Night Sisters movie. Do a Night Sisters movie. And make it female-led. Make it all-female cast. Something along those lines is entirely possible. But, you know, going back to your question, you think it'd be great and it definitely needs to happen. I don't see why it's necessary. I don't see why that's... You're just making a statement if you make it an all-female cast at this point. At this point in this country, in the world we live in, I don't think it'd be received well. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't receive it well. I'm not saying that, you know, certain people wouldn't. I just don't think it would do that well. At this point, before you start exploring new territory with Star Wars like that, you need to win the base fan base back. You need to win the core fan base back with Episode 9. Because whether you liked Last Jedi or not, you split the fan base with 8. This is damage control. 9, whether I want to admit it or not, 9 is damage control. You get everybody back on the same page, let it coast for a while, then drop something new like that in. But they can make a liar out of me. They could come out at Celebration. Hey, we're shooting a new Star Wars movie, all female led. I guarantee you people, and sure, there's going to be a section of fans who are sexists, who are going to say, no, screw that, we don't want that. But for the most part, I just don't think it would do well. You know, I could be wrong. They could come out with one. It could be the greatest Star Wars movie ever. but people don't judge stuff based on its own merit anymore. They always compare it to something else. So, do I think it needs to happen? I don't think it needs to happen, but if it does, I really don't know how that's going to go. I don't know how it would go over. And but like I said, I'm really surprised Disney hasn't done something like that yet, or he hasn't announced it yet. Give it a few years, I'm willing to bet it's going to happen. So, thanks for the question, Vicky. I do appreciate it. Let me know in the comment section below or in the live chat. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about an all-female Star Wars movie. Do you think it'd work? Do you think it wouldn't work? How well do you think it'd be received? Let me know. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.